Come and See is an amazing film, and if you don't believe me, you can watch it for free on YouTube and decide for yourself. Unlike many war movies, Come and See explicitly shows the cruelty of war in a realistic way. In the movie itself, it uses real ammunition, it shoots a cow, and the main actor came back to school aged and with gray hair. Now that's a movie that's realistic. Now, I can sing my praise about Come and See for hours, but instead, I want to talk about the history around it. By the way, there's going to be spoilers for the film, so if you haven't seen it, I implore you to go see it. But if you have seen it, or you simply don't care and want to learn the history, please keep watching. In the United States, I feel that the Eastern theater of World War II is clearly overshadowed by the Western theater. There are hundreds of videos on YouTube about D-Day, the Battle of the Bulge, and other American victories in World War II. But we rarely discuss the atrocities the Germans did in a place like Belarus. In June of 1941, Germany invaded the Soviet Union in what would be known as Operation Barbarossa. Germany quickly invaded all of what is modern-day Belarus, and by the end of 1941, the whole territory was occupied by Germany. German occupation of Belarus was brutal. Over 380,000 Belarusians were sent to slave labor camps. Ethnically, Belarus is full of the Slavic people, who Germany deemed as necessary to exterminate under the General Plan Ost. Within this plan, it was stated that there would need to be living space for the German people. Therefore, territories in Central and Eastern Europe needed to be ethnically cleansed. Keep in mind, it was not just the Jews that Hitler hated. He also hated the Roma, communists, homosexuals, and especially the Slavic people. This ethnic cleansing was seen in many ways. As mentioned prior, many Belarusians were sent to slave labor camps. Moreover, Belarusian Jews were also swiftly put into concentration camps, like much of Europe's Jewish population. However, the cruelty of the Germans did not end there. According to estimates, the Germans were said to destroy over 9,200 Belarusian settlements. Of those, over 600 villages were burnt to the ground, with their entire population being burnt with them. Come and See depicts these atrocities firsthand when you see the protagonist Floria in the midst of these villages being burnt down. Within these operations, the Germans would often force the entire population of the village into an enclosed space, to which then they would swiftly lock up the villagers and burn them to death. To make things even crueler, within the movie the villagers are given the option to escape, but they would have to leave the children, a tactic the Germans would often use to exacerbate their cruelty. I still have the image of a German soldier casually tossing a baby back into the burning church, cemented in my mind. The movie does an excellent job of showing the cruelty that the Germans instilled on the women of the occupied territories. It is estimated that over 30% of Belarusian women were raped during German occupation, many of which either had unwanted pregnancies or they were killed to ensure silence. The most famous of these burnings came in 1943 in what will be known as the Cotton Massacre. Due to Soviet partisans being present in the area, a topic I will get to later on in the video, the Germans were looking for retaliation for the death of 4 German police officers occupying the area. They chose Cotton, a village with a population of 157 people, about 6 kilometers away from the German police officers' murders. Troops from the German Durlwanger Brigade, also called the Black Hunters, an SS division made up of mostly criminals to commit secret tasks, rounded up the villagers into a shed. The Black Hunters then covered the shed in straw, locked the doors, and burnt the shed to the ground. Those who attempted to escape were quickly killed by machine guns. 75 children under the age of 16 died in the burning shed. After the massacre, the Black Hunters looted the village and then burnt the rest of it to the ground. Of the village, only 5 survived the German attack. As mentioned before, this was not a one-off occurrence for the Germans. They did this to over 600 villages. In the film, they claimed that it was 626 to be exact. Despite the horrors going on in their land, the Belarusians did not sit idly by. They formed resistance movements, which would later be referred to as Soviet Partisans. Though these groups had multiple names, Soviet Partisans is a term which allows us to encompass all resistance and guerrilla groups in the region. Initially under German occupation, The Germans attempted to find collaborators which would help maintain control of the native population. The Belarusian Auxiliary Police was established in July of 1941, and they were deployed throughout the country to conduct murder missions for the Germans. What were the benefits of joining these auxiliary police? Well, it's obvious. In the film, you see a man who still has his house and his crops and his cow intact because he joined the auxiliary police. Joining the auxiliary police was a way of ensuring your family's safety during this troubling time, even if it meant betraying your country. When caught by Soviet partisans, German collaborators faced capital punishment for their crimes. In the film, we see how collaborators would beg for their lives and would try to convince the partisans that they weren't German, and therefore they should be spared. Often, the partisans wouldn't listen, and these collaborators would be killed along with the Germans they worked beside. As you can see, for citizens at this time, they had the inability of just sitting idly by. You had the choice of either working with the Germans and being killed by the partisans, or do nothing and risk being killed by the Germans. Simultaneously, a plethora of resistance groups were being built to combat German occupation. In 1942, an underground group called the Belarusian Independence Party emerged, with the goal of overthrowing Nazi rule and establishing Belarus as an independent state. Though the BIP attempted to conduct military operations starting in the capital of Minsk, the Germans were extremely efficient in destroying their leadership. One leader, Catholic priest named Vincent Haduski, definitely butchered that name, I'm sorry if I did, was captured by the Germans and sent to an extermination camp. Another party leader, named Ivan Yermenencha, was harshly tortured by the Germans and then eventually was exiled from the country. Despite the setbacks, thousands of Belarusian citizens joined these partisan groups to help defend Belarus against German rule. They made a major impact on the war effort, an impact that is rarely stated in common history. Though not depicted in the film, some inspirational stories come from Jewish resistance groups in the region. The Bilski partisans were focused on western Belarus, with the goal of creating safe villages where Jews could survive. Along the way, many Jews from 1941 to 1944 used guerrilla tactics against the German war effort. They destroyed bridges, killed Nazi officers, and disrupted factory production. The story of these Belarusian Jews is extremely motivating. It shows the Jewish people were not complicit in their suffering. And in fact, they fought back against the German atrocities, a narrative which is usually forgotten when discussing World War II history. In all, Come and See brings to light the rarely discussed topics of World War II history. It is important to remember that Hitler's genocide was not solely focused on the Jews. There were many other groups he considered undesirable. The Nazi invasion of the Soviet Union is something that needs to be taught more in schools, but because of an American bias, we will never discuss it. This means it is up to us to learn about this history, and you can start with the film. And hopefully from there, you can read the literature about the subject. Thank you for watching, and if you want more World War II videos, remember to like and subscribe. Honestly, World War II is probably my favorite subject, so I would love to discuss about it more. And if you have any ideas for videos, please let me know, and I'd be happy to research them. Thank you for your time, and have an excellent day.